my boyfriend got my sister pregnant. So I walked into my sister's room and my boyfriend is handing her a stack of money, telling her she should get an abortion. I start yelling, "What are you doing?" My boyfriend says he's just helping her out. I scream, "Why are you trying to have her get an abortion?" Then my sister interrupts and says, "We need to tell her." She looks at my boyfriend. I'm just like, what the going on? She tells my boyfriend, "We gotta tell her." I'm like, "Tell me what?" My boyfriend says, "Nothing. There's nothing to tell you." My sister just says straight up, the baby is his. I sit there for a second, and then out of nowhere, I just black out. I attacked him until my sister pulled me off. I went to our room. I packed up my things. I took my boyfriend's clothes, put them into a tub, poured bleach on them, grabbed my things, and left. Couple months later, my sister had the baby. It's now been 2 years, and I still haven't spoken to either my sister or my ex-boyfriend.
Story time of why I'm terrified of ever babysitting again. I started babysitting for this one family in the summer of 2019. I have my information for babysitting online, so people contact me. So the mom contacted me and said she wanted me to babysit for her 3 kids. So we set up a time and schedule. She gave me her address, the usual. So when I got to her house, she had already left like 5 minutes before I arrived, and I see the kids sitting in the living room watching TV. But then I see this man walking down the steps. This man, who I was assuming was the dad. He asked me who I was, and I said I was the babysitter and that I sorted things out with the mom, and if he wanted to make sure he could call her. Well, he told me that he was the dad and that he knew I was coming. He just didn't expect me to come so early and so suddenly. I was kind of confused as why they needed a babysitter if he was already there. So I was like, okay, so he wouldn't be able to get into the house if it wasn't actually the dad, so it has to be him. Well, the mom texts me and says she's on her way home, so I put the kids to sleep and then I go home. Half an hour later, I get a text from the mom saying the kids are gone. When I described that man I saw, she said that sounded a lot like her ex-husband who has a spare key to their house. Part 2 of why I'm terrified of babysitting again. Like I said, when the mom came home after I left, she told me that the kids were gone. So I described to her the man that I saw in the house that I thought was the dad, and she told me that was the ex-husband who had a spare key to their house. But she did not believe me right away. At first, she was asking me a lot of questions, acting as if I was the one who kidnapped them. Almost as if she was accusing me of kidnapping. And you know what? Those feelings were right. Obviously, the police had to get involved, and when I spoke to them, they told me that the mom wanted to know if I knew where the kids were. And I had already told her about the man that I saw, but they said that they would also look into the ex-husband as well. So she kind of believed me, but didn't 100%. I was literally being accused of kidnapping 3 kids. But they were looking more into me because her ex-husband lived in Colorado. We lived in Kansas. So I was a prime suspect up until they interviewed the dad and he gave himself up for part 3 of why I'll never babysit again. So like I said, they were finally able to interview the dad, but it took a while because he lived in a different state. But when they interviewed him, he mentioned this girlfriend that he had. It was his current girlfriend, and so they asked him where she lived and all that good stuff. Well, the police decided that they were going to question the girlfriend as well. So they went over to the girlfriend's house, they knocked on the door, and as soon as they knock on the door, the police hear a child crying. The dad didn't mention anything about his girlfriend having kids. And the next thing you know, a toddler runs up to the door. A toddler that looks exactly like one of the kids that I was babysitting. And so the police arrested the girlfriend and the police arrested the dad for kidnapping 3 children. Mom finally got her kids back and everything was good. The kids were not harmed in any way. This all happened in the span of a week or 2. The mom actually ended up coming to me and personally apologizing about how she acted. But I told her it was no biggie because anybody would act like that in a situation where their kids were gone. And I continued to babysit her kids.
This story time is how my toxic boyfriend had got me jumped by his ex-girlfriend, but he's not my ex-boyfriend after everything he put me through. Also, we're calling him Marquand. So back in 2017 is when me and Marquand started talking. He recently just got a relationship 1 month before he started talking to me. Me, on the other hand, he was my first boyfriend. I'd always ask him if he still had feelings for her, but he always said that he didn't and that she cheated on him, which is why they split. I felt bad for him and wanted to comfort him through the time, but what he didn't tell me is that he was still talking to her behind my back. I wasn't the type of girl to go through phones, but I started to get suspicious. He'd always accuse me of cheating and was very insecure. I used to think he only felt that way because his past relationship. But fast forward 7 months into a relationship, I get a random text message asking if I knew Marquand had a girlfriend. And I was like, I am his girlfriend. And the never responds, me and Marquand have been together for 3 years. After this, it gets real bad. Y'all let me know if y'all want a part 2. This is part 2 of how my toxic boyfriend had got me jumped by his ex-girlfriend. So I get a random text message and I'm going back and forth with the number and it tells me that they had been with my boyfriend Marquand for 3 years. I'm like, hold up, who are you? And she told me her name was Janaya and she sent pictures of her and Marquand together. I was just so upset and I was like, wow. Then I text her, I didn't even know that she existed. Now I'm guessing that she took that to offense and she was like, what? You're a nobody. And me, I'm trying not to start with her, but she's literally disrespecting me for no reason. And we was going at it, but I had to ignore her. The next day, I pull up to Marquand and I asked him, who was that? He was like, that's my ex. I don't know how she got your number. Just stuttering. I could just tell he was lying. I couldn't believe him. So I took my things from his place and I was trying to leave out. He was like, oh, baby, don't leave. Wow. I was on my way out. There were like 5 girls pulling up to his crib also. This is when I was about to get jumped. This is part 3 of how my toxic boyfriend had got me jumped by his ex-girlfriend. If y'all remember, like I said earlier, there were 5 girls that pulled up to his house. As they were getting closer, I noticed that one of the girls was the same girl that was texting me and how she and Marquand was together for 3 years. I asked him, why is Janaya here? She gets real defensive, start yelling at me, cursing me out, calling me all types of names. Y'all, literally out of nowhere, Marquand turns into a completely different person. He tells Janaya, baby, I don't know why she came to my house. It's like she's stalking me. I'm like, what? You was just begging me not to leave. He's like, I don't know what she's talking about. And runs over to Janaya. And guys, my mind is blown. I start laughing like, wow, you're a joke. And I try to walk off. And Janaya's just like, what'd you say to my man? I completely ignore her and continue to walk. And before I notice, I'm getting yanked by my hair and girls are stomping on me. It gets worse after this. Should I make it part 4?
How did I get myself in this position? How did I get myself in this position?
Bye, sisters.